Okay, so we are live on air. Just share my screen and we'll start the presentation. Yeah. So, can everybody see my PowerPoint slides? Okay, perfect. Nice. Okay. Yeah. So we'll not talk about the whole lifespan today. Yeah, we'll just talk about childhood and adolescence and about the second half of the life. Yeah, I structured the presentation as follows. So my title is Impact of Chronological Age and Maturation on Aerobic and Anaerobic Performance during the lifespan, but it's not 100% correct because we are not talking about the whole lifespan today. That's me. I think I don't have to introduce myself. So we have in this presentation, we'll have two different topics. Yeah, I structured it like this. So we'll talk about, I'll just have my laser pointer. We'll talk about children and adolescents, yeah, and anaerobic performance. So what is the difference or what is special in anaerobic performance of children and adolescents? How is it different to anaerobic performance in adults? And of course, why is it different than anaerobic performance in adults? The second part will be about the second half of the life, yeah. So about adults, older adults or elderlies, yeah, you can call it as you want. Some call it best agers, yeah. In Germany, we say Senioren, yeah, so which translates to seniors, I guess. So yeah, we'll talk about the impact of aging on endurance performance, how and why aerobic performance declines, what we can do about it, and what we cannot do about it. Okay, but let's start with anaerobic performance in children. So yeah, since the mid-80s, yeah, or early 80s, we know that anaerobic performance, yeah, so performance during short-term and really very, very intensive exercise bouts in children is lower than in adults. Yeah, here I have a really relatively old publication, yeah, from Inbar and Bauer from 1986. They performed the Wingate anaerobic test, yeah, which is a 30 seconds all-out sprint on the bicycle ergometer, yeah. On the bicycle ergometer, you can record the performance, the power relatively good. Yeah, on the treadmill, it's really very difficult to record the power. On the bicycle, you can really, yeah, you have this force velocity curves. Yeah, you can really record the power in a very easy way. And if we look at the maximum power output in watts during the 30 seconds, okay, yes, so some more guests in the waiting room. If you look on the power output during these 30 seconds, yeah, you see that the absolute power, the mean power as well as the peak power is really low in childhood and adolescent, yeah, and rises and rises and rises the older the children are getting, yeah. So power during childhood and adolescence is considerably lower in children compared to adults. Yeah, this is valid for mean power and for peak power. If you normalize the power to the, of course, adults are more heavy, yeah, have more muscles, are a little bit heavier, yeah, but even if you normalize the power, watts per kilogram body weight, yeah, you can still see that power is lower during childhood and adolescence and rises with adulthood, yeah. So yeah, and the authors said that absolute and relative power is lower in children, yeah, but the mechanisms for the relatively deficient anaerobic characteristics of children are not clear. Okay, so the question is, why is anaerobic performance lower in children compared to adults? anybody has some ideas why this could be the case? Okay, or let me just ask, have you heard of this phenomenon? Yeah, that absolute and relative power in children is lower compared to adolescents.
Yes.
Okay, so you've heard of this, Wagner?
Yes, I heard it during graduation.
Okay, okay. And do you know why anaerobic performance could be lower in children than in adolescents, even the relative power output?
From my studies, it is about the maturation stages. They are not fully developed, so and that's at least what I learned during graduation, the studies that was presented to us.
Okay, yeah, sounds reasonable. Anybody has some good morning, let's just interrupt. Good morning, Damien.
Good morning, Florian. Sorry to interrupt you.
Welcome. No problem, no problem. Okay. Yeah, does anybody know some more detailed reason why anaerobic performance in children could be lower than in adults?
Konstantinos typed about hormonal levels.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Factors.
Okay, sounds good, but it's not a okay, so we'll have a look on it step by step, yeah. At least I can be sure that I don't tell you anything which you already know or which you know already. So here's a study I performed. I conducted. It's relatively old. Yeah, was one of my first scientific studies. So I did four anaerobic Wingate anaerobic tests. Yeah, 4 in a row, separated by 2 minutes active recovery. And here you can see the power output, yeah, in these 4 anaerobic Wingate anaerobic tests. And I had two different groups of participants. Yeah, blue is trained adults, and red is trained boys. Yeah, aged between 11 and 12 years old. So, and obviously we can see here that the absolute power output in boys is very, very high, yeah, and in boys is relatively low. So it's not a big surprise that adults produce more power than boys. If we take a closer look, if you compare the first sprint, yeah, with the fourth sprint, we can see that the decrease in performance and power in adults is higher compared to the decrease in boys. Yeah, so we can see that adults experience much more fatigue during the course of these 4 sprints, and the decrease in power in boys is relatively low compared to boys. Yeah, so the power is already normalized, yeah, to watts per kilogram lean body mass. This is the peak power, yeah, the highest power. If we look at the mean power, yeah, which is average power produced during these 30 seconds, we can see a very similar phenomenon, yeah, that the decrease in mean power in men is higher than compared to the decrease in boys. Sorry, I just have to. So yeah, here I show you another story, another study, which is relatively old, from 1993, but still I'm dreaming to replicate this study, yeah, because the number of participants is relatively low. So here we can see just 8 boys and 8 men, yeah, performing 2 consecutive wind-gate anaerobic tests on 3 different occasions, yeah. And on occasion 1, we had 1 minute recovery between the first and the second wind-gate anaerobic test. On the second occasion, we had 2 minutes of recovery between sprint number 1 and number 2. And on the third occasion, we had 10 minutes recovery between these 2 sprints, yeah. And we can see that children, yeah, here the circles, recover faster than adults, yeah. So if we have 1 minute of a rest, children achieve more power related to the first wind-gate anaerobic sprint than adults, yeah. So we can see here the 2 minutes rest between 2 sprints. In the second wind-gate anaerobic test, children achieve almost 90% of the performance from the first wind-gate anaerobic test, yeah. If Bonjour, good morning. Or we just take a brief let me just say hello, good morning, and welcome to our French guests, to our French students. So I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you received in the lecture, and I'm really happy to share this seminar with you. Yeah, it's a great opportunity for us, and yeah, maybe I'll just repeat the title. Yeah, so let me get back to the first slide. Just 1 second. Yeah, or the second one. No, this one. Okay, basically we have in the first part of the lecture, yeah, we have 2 different subjects. So I'll share it again. So I'll talk about children and anaerobic performance, yeah, how and why anaerobic performance is in children is different from anaerobic performance in adults. And in the second part of the lecture, I will talk about adults or older adults, yeah, and aerobic performance, yeah. So it's basically about the impact of aging on endurance performance, and about how and why aerobic performance declines with aging, yeah, and what we can do about it and what we cannot do about it. Okay, then I'll just jump to this slide here. So can everybody see my presentation? Yeah, I guess so. Okay, we can see here that no matter how long the recovery period between the 2 wind-gate anaerobic tests is, children recover faster and achieve more power relative to the first wind-gate anaerobic test. Yeah, so the adults, they of course they achieve more power, they produce more energy in the first wind-gate anaerobic test, but relatively to the first wind-gate anaerobic test, they produce less power in the second. Yeah, this is valid for peak power, and this is valid for mean power. Yeah, the mean work they produce during these 30 seconds. Yeah. So the conclusion of this study is boys recover faster than men from high-intensity short-term exercise. Yeah, and now is the question: why is this the case? Okay, I'll jump to the next slide. So another very interesting study, yeah, from French researcher, yeah, from Sébastien Rattel. I hope to pronounce it correctly. From University Clermont-Ferrand. They did an interesting study with 3 different groups of participants. Yeah, they had one group children, yeah, 12 children, 13 untrained or 13 endurance trained adults, and 12 untrained adults, yeah, and they did a Wingate anaerobic test, measured the performance, and measured some physiological parameters during and after this Wingate anaerobic test. So this is a little bit a busy slide, yeah. Again, you can see here the children, the endurance trained adults, and the untrained adults. So if we look on the absolute power, yeah, it's quite clear that children perform have lower performance, yeah, and the adults have a really very high performance. And still, if you normalize it to body weight, yeah, children have considerably less performance than adults. This is valid for the peak power and for the mean power as well, yeah. But if you have a look on the fatigue index, you can see that the fatigue index is lower in children compared to the untrained adults and the endurance trained adults. And the rating of perceived exertion is lower in children compared to these in adults. Okay, so now what are the reasons, yeah, for the decreased power and for the faster recovery? Could it be that the exercise physiology of children is the cause or one cause for the lower performance and the better fatigue resistance, respectively, for the faster recovery? Yeah, let's have a detailed look on exercise physiology during intense exercise. Yeah, again, one of my first study was and I call it an exercise physiology study. Yeah, so we had, I don't know exactly, 13 or 15 trained boys, yeah, endurance trained boys, and 15 or 20 endurance trained adults. And we performed 4 Wingate anaerobic tests in a row. And on a second occasion, just 1 Wingate anaerobic test, and we measured the blood lactate kinetics. Yeah, so the velocity rates in which blood lactate values were rising, and the velocity constants in which blood lactate was eliminated out of the blood. Yeah, and we found out that boys show a more rapid release and elimination of blood lactate during the single 30-second sprint, and a faster elimination of lactate following the 4 30-second sprints compared to adults. Yeah, so the blood lactate kinetics in boys is faster compared to adults. Our French colleagues, yeah, Sébastien Rattel and colleagues did a very similar thing. Yeah, they measured the velocity constants in which blood lactate shows up in the blood, yeah, and the velocity rates in which blood lactate was eliminated from the blood, and they found the same thing, yeah, that children were able to eliminate blood lactate faster, and they were able to produce it faster. Yeah, so it appeared they were able to measure it faster in the blood, and the children eliminated it faster. Of course, the absolute values of blood lactate were considerably lower in children compared to adults. Yeah, this is the same finding than we found it. Okay, so if you look on the relative aerobic contribution during 30-second Wingate anaerobic test, yeah, you find that the contribution of aerobic metabolism is relatively high in children, yeah, compared to untrained adults, yeah. So children are the black columns, yeah. The endurance trained adults is the gray columns, and the untrained adults is a column in the middle, yeah. So from this graph, you can see here that the relative energy contribution from oxidative metabolism in 5 seconds interval is in children is really very high and matches the energy contribution of endurance trained adults. Yeah, so children seem to have a really very good oxidative capacities. Yeah, even during intensive anaerobic exercise. Okay, if you look at physiological parameters, yeah, like heart rate and oxygen uptake, you can see that after the Wingate anaerobic test is over, yeah, the heart rate goes back, also recovers way faster than heart rate of the trained and the untrained adults. Yeah. So same is valid for the oxygen kinetics. Yeah. After the Wingate anaerobic test is over, you can see here children, the black line with a black squares recovers faster than in adults. Yeah. So the post-exercise recovery kinetics of VO2, heart rate, and lactate in children and endurance athletes were faster than those of untrained men. Yeah. One conclusion of this study is that prepubertal children were observed to be metabolically comparable to well-trained adult endurance athletes, and of course were less fatigable during high-intensity exercise than untrained men. And one reason for this phenomenon is the faster recovery of physiological parameters. Okay, yeah, oxygen kinetics is faster in children compared to adults. Yeah, if you have intensive exercise, your energy demand rises very promptly, very quickly, and the oxygen kinetics in adults is relatively slow. Yeah, so we have a kind of a gap between the energy demand and the oxygen kinetics, and children adapt their oxygen kinetics relatively quickly to the increase of energy demand. Yeah. So oxygen kinetics at the start of an exercise is faster in children compared to adults. The onset of oxygen uptake from rest to exercise is really very fast in children. This enables children to match their energetic demands better with aerobic pathways. Yeah. This is very good for exercise with varying oxygen demands, for example, intermittent exercises. Okay, yeah, what about energy? Yeah, what about, for example, phosphocreatine concentrations? Yeah, so it's a very basic topic. Yeah, if you have really very intensive exercise, yeah, you have some phosphocreatine stores within the muscle, yeah, which you use for the first 5, 6, 7 or 10 seconds of an intense exercise bouts. Yeah, it depends, of course it depends what exercise it is and how many energy and how many muscles you need for this exercise. These creatine kinase concentrations, yeah, per unit of time, they have a really very high amount of energy, but of course the body empty these stores very quickly. Yeah, and so we did a really very, let's say, crazy study. Yeah, in Bochum at the Ruhr University in Bochum, where we examined the phosphocreatine concentration of skeletal muscle during high intensity intermittent exercise in children and adults. Yeah, so we took 16 children and 16 adults. Yeah, the children were about 9 years old. The adults were, of course, sports students. Yeah, which helped us during this study. A mean age of 26 years, and we made them do a HIIT protocol. Yeah, like plantar flexions. Yeah, so they had to work with their calf muscles. and we did a HIIT protocol, 10 times 13 seconds at 25% of their 1 repetition maximum, yeah, with 20 seconds recovery between sets. And during and after this HIIT protocol, we were measuring the intramuscular PCR levels in the calf muscle, yeah. You may wonder about this really strange HIIT protocol, yeah, plantar flexions, 10 times 30 seconds, really very strange. Normally you do it on the bicycle ergometer, yeah. But the thing is, yeah, we wanted to measure the PCR levels in the calf muscles with a magnet resonance spectroscopy, yeah. And unfortunately, I don't have pictures with me today, but it is a kind of, I don't know if you have seen it. So basically, we had to put the children and the adults in it's kind of a hole, yeah, and it's a big apparatus, but there's no place for, it's not big enough for a bicycle ergometer, yeah. So we had to come up with an idea which kind of exercise they can do in this very, very limited place, and we came up with this idea of the plantar flexions, and we build some kind of strange machinery where they can perform this this exercise. And of course, with plantar flexions, you have a really slow range of motion, yeah, and it fits perfectly in this kind of hole. Okay, let's have a look at the results, yeah. Here you can see the PCR levels in the calf muscles, yeah, expressed as percentage of the initial PCR level, okay? And you have the adults, the full circles, yeah, the black circles, and the children here, the open, the white circles. You can see before the exercise, yeah, the energy stores were, of course, 100%. Then our HIIT protocol started, and the PCR levels of adults really decreased very rapidly. Yeah, so they decreased. They emptied their energy reserves quite a lot. Yeah, so until between 10 and 20% of the initial values. And you can see here that children do not empty their PCR levels to this extent the adults do. Yeah, and after the HIIT protocol is over, children fill up their PCR levels way faster than adults. Yeah, so they don't empty their reserves in this to this extent than adults do it, and they fill their energy resources faster than adults. And here you can see the pH level, yeah, and you see that the muscles and the blood of adults is it's more sour, yeah. I guess in English you say sour compared to children, yeah. So adults produce more H plus and more blood lactate compared to children. Okay, yeah, but we have other reasons, yeah, for the lower performance in children. For example, one additional reason could be the running economy. Yeah, so we know it for quite a long time that running economy in children is lower in children compared to adults. Yeah, so lower relative and absolute maximum strength and muscle performance compared to adults. Yeah. And of course, this difference is relative, yeah. And the question is the relative strength difference independent of anthropometric or biomechanical factors? Yeah. The answer is children have a higher agonist-antagonist co-contraction rate during running and jumping, and this is an additional reason for the reduced running economy and for the reduced running economy and for the reduced strength and energy production. Okay, yeah, let's have a look on performance and fatigue resistance. Children show lower performance, absolute and relative. I said this quite often. We have a decreased running economy, and it's quite a while ago, but you can still find some sources which say, yeah, children have a different relation between slow twitch and fast twitch muscle fibers. Yeah, some sources say that children have more slow twitch muscle fibers and relatively little fast twitch fibers. Yeah, so from the literature we cannot really judge about this. Yeah, we have very little studies about this and equivocal data on that. Yeah, so we cannot say with certainty about the muscle fiber distribution in children. And some other researchers came up with the idea that we have differences in muscle function, yeah, and metabolic properties in muscles of children. So what exactly did they mean? Yeah, they postulated an hypothesis. Yeah, this hypothesis is called the differential motor unit activation hypothesis. So, and basically it says that children recruit type 2 muscle fibers in reduced extent compared to adults. Yeah. So basically what they are saying is that the neuromuscular activation is generally lower in children. Anybody of you have heard of this from this hypothesis so far? Okay. Yeah, obviously not. So I'm going to explain you the differential motor unit activation hypothesis now. Okay. So how can you measure the differential motor unit activation hypothesis? You can measure it with a interpolated twitch technique. Yeah. So just a very brief explanation. During contractions, yeah, you put an electrical impulse to the muscle, respectively to the nerve, yeah, and the torque you generate with this additionally with this electrical impulse is measured. Yeah, so of course, first they do an voluntary contraction. Yeah, and the difference between the voluntary and the involuntary isometric maximum force is termed as muscle activation index. Yeah, so here I'm apologizing because this is just a German slide. Yeah, but I guess it's not so difficult to understand. So here you have your maximum voluntary torque. Yeah, and then you do the same voluntary contraction again, but you apply this electrical impulse, and then you have a higher force. Yeah, and this difference between voluntary and involuntary contraction is called the muscle activation index. Yeah, and we know it from strength trained persons that this difference is quite small, and the more untrained you are, the higher this deficit is. And now it's really interesting to see how big this difference between voluntary and involuntary contraction is in children and adolescents. So yeah, the answer is that the interpolated twitch technique shows lower voluntary muscle activation in children. Yeah, and this this lower muscle activation, yeah, is significantly age dependent. Yeah, so the older the children are getting, yeah, the smaller this this deficit is. Yeah, so this deficit decreases with increasing age. Yeah, and this is suggesting that a lower activation of type 2 muscle fibers is existent in children. Yeah, so the differential motor motor unit activation hypothesis could be one more additional cause for the lower muscular performance in children during intense exercise. Yeah, so children tend to recruit more type 1 slow twitch muscle fibers, yeah, than fast twitch muscle fibers, even during intensive exercise bouts, yeah, like Wingate anaerobic test, and so on. Yeah. So yeah, and we think that it's this is a valid explanation for the lower absolute and relative performance during endurance and strength exercises. Okay, yeah, to summarize it, in children, yeah, we are finding lower absolute and relative performance during anaerobic exercise. Children experience less fatigue during dynamic exercise, and children recover faster after short, intense exercise. We have differences in exercise physiology, yeah, O2 kinetics, blood lactate kinetics, heart rate kinetics, yeah, and we have differences in muscle function, yeah. So most likely we have a reduced ability to recruit type 2 muscle fibers. Of course, we know type 1 muscle fibers, yeah, generate less force, yeah, but they consume less energy, and they produce less metabolites, yeah, like lactate, and they eliminate more metabolites like lactate, and consequently, children produce less energy, but they recover faster. Okay, here you can have a look at biological and physiological factors, yeah, which are responsible for the faster recovery of children, yeah. So we have three different categories, yeah. So we have size-related, growth-related, and metabolic-related. So I'll start with the metabolic-related reasons. So we have a faster return to the acid-base balance, yeah, as I showed you. The lactate kinetic, the lactate elimination in children is faster compared to adults. Yeah, so we find lower absolute blood lactate values, yeah, and lower H+ levels in children. We have a faster CRP resynthesis. So they fill up the CRP levels faster than adults. Yeah, they have a lower glycolytic enzyme activity, and they have lower amounts of energy deposits. Yeah, but they recover them faster compared to adults. We have a lower relative muscle mass in children and lower neuromuscular recruitment. Yeah, I just showed you the motor unit activation hypothesis. Of course, this produces less performance, yeah, but it leads to a faster recovery. And size related, of course, we know children are smaller and have different proportions, yeah. So children have a lower cross-sectional area of muscle fibers, a higher capillary densities, shorter perfusion distances, yeah, which means a shorter distance for metabolic processes and shorter circulation times, yeah. And we have faster heart rate kinetics. All these reasons lead to faster recovery and lower performance production. Okay. Yeah, I like to use this analogy. Yeah, so of course the big truck, yeah, the big SUV is a symbol for adults. Yeah, so as adults we are able to produce more power, more energy, but of course we need more resources for that. Yeah. So we need more energy, and of course we produce more, more metabolites. Yeah, more. A car like this is producing more CO2. Yeah, but of course we have more energy. And children, yeah, are more the very, very small car. Yeah, they don't have this much energy. They don't have quite a high performance, but of course they need less resources, yeah, and they don't produce so much things which are not so good for the environment. Yeah, for example, less CO2 production if you transfer it to cars. Okay, yeah. If you want to read more literature, yeah, if you want to go more in depth, I can really recommend this piece of research here, yeah, summarizing research about children and adult differences in muscle function. This is a nice review, child-adult differences in muscle activation review. And yeah, this was my lecture about anaerobic performance in children and adolescents and how and why it is different from adults. Do you have any questions?
Is there any difference between girls and boys? Because I saw that basically most of the studies that you've shown, it was about boys and men's.
Yeah, this is a big problem we have in sports science. Yeah, as far as I know, we don't have really very much research on girls. Yeah, um, yeah. So as far as I know, the majority of studies in this subject is exclusively performed with boys. I personally, so of course we have this deficit. Yeah, we need more studies with girls. I think before puberty, there should be no big differences between boys and girls. But this is just an assumption. Of course, we need data on this, yeah, and the data is not available in a sufficient way. So could be an nice opportunity for you during your studies or for your master thesis.
Who knows?
Okay, yeah. Any more questions? Ipek, I saw Ipek. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning. I heard that, I don't know if it's true, but children only use the aerobic system until a certain age. I don't know this information, but do you know about this?
Okay, so your question was, or the assumption is that children use only the aerobic pathway during a certain age.
Yes.
Okay, and after this, what they're doing after this?
Okay.
No, I mean, of course, as you can see in this data here, so I'll just go back to the slide, just 1 second. Yeah, let's share my screen. Okay, so yeah, if you can see here, I mean, children have a really good oxidative capacities. Yeah, they tend to use oxidative metabolism more than the anaerobic capacities. Yeah, so and they are on quite the same or a similar level than endurance trained adults. Yeah, so they rely on oxidative metabolism more than on anaerobic metabolism, but this doesn't mean that they do not use their anaerobic their anaerobic pathway at all. Yeah, of course they have some anaerobic contribution as well, and after puberty, yeah, when they are fully matured, they use their energy contribution according to the demands. Yeah, of course, when they run a long distance run or a marathon, yeah, they use more the aerobic pathways than the anaerobic. So it depends a little bit on what the task is.
Okay, thank you very much again.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome. Okay, any more questions?
Just in your opinion, you think this all could be explained by hormonal factors like me and Konstantinos said, or other factors could be
Yeah, good question.
why they don't use the anaerobic pathway that much?
Yeah, it's a good question. To be honest, I don't know exactly, but I guess that hormones have a contribution for this. But it's a difficult question. Yeah, but if you look at the specific situations, it's not the hormones, it's the exercise physiology. Yeah, but of course the higher hierarchy question is why it's the aerobic contribution. And the cause for the different exercise physiology, you could suggest that it's the hormones, but to be honest, I don't know exactly. Yeah, but in this acute situation, it's the direct cause is a different exercise physiology. But all in all, I would not consider. So I showed you many differences, between children and adults, but it's really important to me to do not consider these differences as a deficit. It's not a deficit. It's just another way of making use of resources. It's just literally another way of matching the energy needs. It's not a deficit, and this does not, and this is really important to me. This really does absolutely not mean that children should not do or could not do anaerobic tasks. So if you look at how children move and if you look at how children play, for example, it's not this. It's not the slow jogging and running. It's fast running. Catching somebody else. Really high
Carrying
intensity.
each other all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's running fast. Then having a rest. So children are very good suited for anaerobic intensive task, for intensive exercise. They just function a little bit different, and please, it's not it's not a deficit, especially in Germany. Until the 2000s, we thought, children are not suited very well for anaerobic task. The anaerobic energy metabolism is really not matured. So please do not do any intensive anaerobic exercise with them. I don't know what you did learn in your bachelor. If
some people still think like that in my country. To
okay.
this day.
Okay, then I'm okay. Then I'm relaxed. I don't know how it is in Turkey, but in Germany you still can read it not in scientific literature, but in practically applied literature. So endurance training with children only, aerobic, and please no anaerobic intense exercise, because the anaerobic energy metabolism is not mature. I mean, it is the anaerobic metabolism is different, but I don't consider this as a deficit.
But it's still very trainable.
Yeah, of course. Correct. Correct.
Most of the Olympic weightlifters, they start their bases at, I don't know, maybe 9 to 10 years old.
And I mean, we didn't talk about strength training, but of course the power production in children is reduced when you think about really strength task. The absolute and relatively performance level is decreased for very similar reasons, and this led to the assumption to the wrong assumption, no, strength training with children, somehow the power is different, and maybe we should not do it. But Wagner, of course, it is trainable. They as soon as you start training, they improve. Yeah, they improve on good rates. Of course, they tend to produce the energy and the power more on an aerobic way, but they recover their PCR levels faster. Yeah, they recover their heart rate faster. The oxygen consumption is recovering faster. So they as a summary, they are suited very well for anaerobic and of course strength exercise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Not by me.
Okay, good. Then we'll have some 5 minutes break. Yeah, I just share my screen, or so I stop the recording. Yeah.